This is HOA rejected. The HOA made it personal, and I made it documented. I want you to picture this. I am crouched by my rear bumper in my own driveway at 7:15 in the morning, still holding my work thermos, and this woman is taking photos of my vehicle identification number through the back window like she is documenting a crime scene. She looks up, sees me standing there, and just screams, "You are not special, you are just next." Then she waves a clipboard at me and tells me my permit decal does not match the registration paperwork on file, so the car is marked for tow on site effective immediately. Her name is Brenda Evans. She is the Special Assessment Coordinator for the Silverleaf Association, which is the homeowners association that runs this development in Miami, Florida. I work as a water treatment plant operator, which means I am on strict schedules, and I cannot afford random tow threats when I am supposed to be clocking in for a 12-hour shift in 40 minutes. The stakes here are not just annoying fees. I am trying to refinance my place, and any lien threat on the property could wreck the deal entirely. So when Brenda stands up, flips open a little booklet that looks like tow yard claim tickets, and tells me the tow company does not wait, and they do not care about disputes, I know I have about 10 seconds to decide whether to move the car or dig in. I look past her at the bright yellow tire clamp lying on the ground near my rear wheel. It is one of those vehicle immobilizer boots, the kind that parking enforcement uses to lock a car in place until you pay. She has not put it on yet, but the threat is clear. I ask her what paperwork mismatch she is talking about. She taps her clipboard and says the permit decal I stuck on my windshield 3 weeks ago shows a different unit number than the one on my registration card in the HOA portal. I tell her that is impossible because I only own one unit, and I copied the number straight from the welcome packet. She smiles, shakes her head, and says, "I have all day, and so does my fine meter." I have been living in Silverleaf for 8 months. The neighborhood is one of those developments where the committee micromanages decals and guest passes like it is fine art. Every car needs a color-coded sticker. Every guest needs a temporary pass that you print from the portal and display on the dashboard. If the pass is crooked, if the decal has a bubble, if your guest forgets to log out after 2 hours, you get a notice. Brenda has been running the parking enforcement subcommittee since before I moved in, and I have watched her tag cars for violations that do not exist just to meet some internal quota. I glance over at my neighbor 2 driveways down. He is watering his lawn, and he has paused mid-spray to stare at us. Brenda notices and waves at him like this is a friendly block party. Then she turns back to me and says, "I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink." That line sticks with me, because it is exactly the kind of thing she would say, and exactly the kind of threat she would follow through on. I take a breath, pull out my phone, and start recording. I do not announce it. I just hold the phone low and let it run. She does not notice right away, because she is too busy flipping through her tow claim booklet like she is looking for my name. She looks up and tells me the tow truck is already on the way. I ask her if the board authorized this. She laughs and says she does not need board approval for enforcement actions. That is what the parking rules are for. I ask her to show me the rule that says a minor decal mismatch is an automatic tow. She flips the clipboard around and points to a paragraph that I cannot read because she is holding it at an angle and the text is too small. I step closer. She pulls it back and says I can request a copy through the portal like everyone else. I tell her I did request a copy 2 weeks ago, and the portal still shows my request as pending. She shrugs and says that is a technical issue, not her problem. I hear a diesel engine rumble in the distance. My chest tightens. If a tow truck actually shows up and hooks my car, I am going to be late for work, I am going to have to pay impound fees, and I am going to have a tow record on my vehicle history, right when the refinance company is pulling reports. I look at Brenda, and I say, very calmly, that I have proof my decal is correct, and I am not moving the car until she shows me written authorization from the board president. She narrows her eyes, bends down, picks up the tire clamp, and starts walking toward my rear wheel. I step between her and the car. She stops, looks at me, and says, "You are obstructing official HOA business." The diesel sound gets louder. A white tow truck with amber lights turns the corner 2 blocks down and starts rolling toward us. Brenda grins. She says the driver already has the work order, and he will not wait for a debate. I ask her if the work order includes the board signature. She ignores the question and waves at the truck. The driver sees her, flashes his lights once, and continues up the street. My neighbor with the hose is now fully staring, no pretense, just watching this whole thing unfold like it is a reality show. I keep my phone recording, and I say, loud enough that the mic will pick it up, that I am requesting written proof that this tow is authorized by the board, and that the decal mismatch claim is valid. Brenda tells me I can file a dispute after the car is impounded. I tell her that is not how enforcement works, and she knows it. She tells me I am wasting her time. The tow truck pulls up and stops about 20 feet away. The driver, a guy in a reflective vest and a ball cap, climbs out and walks over. He looks at me, looks at Brenda, and asks if this is the unit. Brenda says yes and hands him a slip of paper. He looks at the paper, looks at my car, and then looks back at her. He asks if the owner is present. She points at me and says I am refusing to cooperate. The driver looks at me and asks if I have a valid permit. I tell him I do, and I show him the decal on my windshield. He squints at it, pulls out a small handheld scanner, and scans the barcode on the sticker. The scanner beeps. The driver frowns, taps the screen, and says the decal is showing up as active and valid in the system. Brenda steps forward and says the system is wrong because the unit number does not match. The driver looks at her and asks if she has documentation of the mismatch. She waves her clipboard. He asks to see it. She hesitates, then hands it over. He reads it for about 5 seconds, hands it back, and says this is not enough for a tow. He tells her that if the decal scans is valid, he cannot hook the car without a board-signed authorization or a clear violation like expired tags or blocking a fire lane. Brenda's face goes red. She says she has the authority to authorize enforcement actions. The driver shakes his head and says his company policy requires board sign-off for disputed tows. He tells her to call him back when she has the paperwork, gets in his truck, and drives away. Brenda stands there, staring at the street, breathing hard. I can see her jaw working. She turns to me and says this is not over. She says she is going to file a formal complaint, escalate the decal issue to a board hearing, and make sure I get cited for obstruction and non-compliance. I tell her I look forward to it, and I will see her at the hearing with my evidence. She picks up the tire clamp, throws it in the back of her SUV parked across the street, and drives off without another word. My neighbor finally turns off his hose and walks over. His name is Greg. He used to be on the HOA board about 3 years ago, back before Brenda took over the parking committee. He asks me what just happened. I tell him Brenda tried to tow my car over a permit decal that scans as valid. He shakes his head and says she has been doing this for months, targeting people she does not like, making up violations, and threatening tows to collect fees. If you are enjoying this chaos, smash that like button and subscribe for more HOA nightmare stories. Greg tells me I need to document everything and get a lawyer involved before Brenda escalates further. He says she has a pattern of filing frivolous complaints and then overwhelming people with paperwork until they either pay up or move out. He says the board is scared of her because she controls the parking budget, and she has dirt on half the committee from when they were sloppy with vendor contracts a few years ago. I ask him if he would be willing to testify at a hearing, if it comes to that. He says yes, absolutely, and he can bring copies of old meeting minutes that show she has overstepped her authority before. I thank him and tell him I will keep him posted. I get in my car and drive to work. The whole shift I am thinking about that recording. I am thinking about the way Brenda claimed she did not need board approval. I am thinking about the way the tow driver hesitated and asked for documentation. I am thinking about the fact that she has a stack of tow claim tickets, like she is running her own impound operation. When I get home that night, I pull up the HOA portal and check the parking rules. The section on enforcement says any tow action requires written authorization from the board president or the property manager. It does not say the parking coordinator can authorize tows on her own. I screenshot the rule and save it. The next morning I get an email from the HOA management company. The subject line says parking violation notice. I open it and see a bright orange windshield sticker image attached, labeled as a violation photo taken at 6:30 a.m. The sticker says violation in big letters, no other details visible. The email says I am being fined $250 for improper permit display, and I have 7 days to pay, or the fine increases to $500. I scroll down and see that the notice is signed by Brenda, not the board president. I reply to the email and ask for clarification on what violation I committed, since my decal scanned as valid yesterday morning. I attach the parking rules screenshot, and I ask for proof that Brenda has authorization to issue fines without board approval. I do not get a response. Instead, I get a second email 2 hours later from a different address. This one is from the property management company's compliance department. It says I have been flagged for a surprise parking inspection, and a compliance officer will be conducting a site visit within the next 72 hours. I read that line again. A surprise parking inspection. That is seed escalation step 1. I call Greg and tell him what is happening. He says Brenda is trying to bury me in process before I can challenge the original fine. He says she has done this before, using inspections to find new violations and stacking fees until people give up. He tells me to take photos of my car every day, time-stamped, so I have proof of compliance. I thank him and start taking pictures. The inspection happens on day 2. A woman in a polo shirt with a Silverleaf Association badge shows up at noon with a clipboard and a digital camera. She walks around my car, takes photos of the decal, the license plate, the VIN, and the curb. She does not speak to me. She just nods, writes something on her clipboard, and leaves. I get an email an hour later saying no violations were found during the inspection. I feel a tiny bit of relief until I see the second part of the email, which says I am still responsible for the original $250 fine and the inspection fee of $75. I reply and say I am not paying either fee until I see board authorization. No response. Day 4, I get a certified letter. It is from a law office in Fort Lauderdale. The letter says Brenda Evans, on behalf of the Silverleaf Association, is filing a small claims action against me for unpaid fines and obstruction of HOA enforcement. The amount is listed as $850 plus court costs and attorney fees. That is escalation step 2. I read the letter 3 times. This is a frivolous filing meant to force me into court and waste time. I call a lawyer I know who handles HOA disputes. His name is Paul. He reads the letter over the phone and laughs. He says it is a bluff. He says Florida law requires the HOA to go through internal dispute resolution before filing in court, and this letter skips that step entirely. He tells me to file a motion to dismiss and to countersue for malicious prosecution if she pushes it. He also tells me to get my evidence ready because this is going to a hearing no matter what. That same afternoon, I get a knock on the door. I open it and see a woman I have never met before. She is holding a phone, and she says she is with the Silverleaf Parking Committee. She tells me she is here to document my vehicle for the ongoing enforcement case. I ask her who sent her. She says Brenda Evans. I ask her if she has authorization from the board. She does not answer. She just starts recording video of my car from the street. I realize this is the side complication. Brenda has sent a second volunteer to film from behind, so every move I make looks worse on camera. I do not engage. I just close the door and let her record whatever she wants. I call Greg and tell him what is happening. He says he is coming over right now. Greg shows up 10 minutes later. The woman is still standing on the sidewalk filming. Greg walks up to her and asks her name. She does not respond. He asks her if she is a licensed investigator. She says she does not need a license to document violations. Greg pulls out his phone and starts recording her. He tells her that filming private property without consent can be considered harassment under Florida Statute 784.048. She lowers her phone and walks away without another word. Greg looks at me and says, "You need to take this to the board now, tonight." He says there is a meeting in 2 hours and the agenda is open for homeowner comments. I tell him I am ready. The meeting is held in the clubhouse at 7 p.m. I arrive early with a folder full of printed documents, the parking rules screenshot, the certified letter, the inspection email, the tow driver interaction summary, and the timestamps from my daily car photos. Greg is already there. He has brought a binder of old meeting minutes. The board president, a man named Ron, calls the meeting to order. Brenda is sitting at the side table with the other committee chairs. She sees me and her expression hardens. Ron goes through the standard agenda items, approves the last meeting's minutes, and then opens the floor for homeowner comments. I raise my hand. He calls on me. I walk to the podium. I say I am here to report multiple enforcement violations committed by Brenda Evans, including unauthorized tow threats, improper fine issuance, and harassment. Brenda interrupts and says I am out of order. Ron tells her to let me finish. I lay out the timeline: the tow attempt without board approval, the fine notice without board signature, the surprise inspection that found no violations but still charged me a fee, the frivolous small claims filing, and the second volunteer filming my property. I pull out the parking rules screenshot and I ask Ron to read the enforcement authorization section out loud. He reads it. It clearly states that tow actions require board president or property manager approval. I ask Ron if he authorized the tow attempt on my car. He says no. I ask him if Brenda has standing authorization to issue tows without his signature. He says no. Brenda stands up. She says she does not need authorization for every single enforcement action, because that is what the parking rules are for. Ron tells her that is not correct. He says the rules specify the process, and the process requires his signature. Brenda says she has been doing enforcement this way for 2 years, and no one has complained. Greg stands up from the audience and says that is because she threatened everyone else into paying, and the few who fought back ended up moving. He holds up his binder and says he has meeting minutes from 3 years ago that showed the board explicitly voted to require authorization signatures for all tows. Ron asks to see the minutes. Greg walks them up to the table. Ron reads them, looks at Brenda, and says, "This is a problem." Brenda says I am making a big deal out of nothing, and that her enforcement actions are within her role as coordinator. I pull out my phone, open the recording from the tow attempt, and I say, I did not raise my voice, because my proof was louder than any argument. I play the recording. It is crystal clear. Brenda's voice saying she does not need board approval. Brenda's voice saying the tow company does not wait and they do not care about disputes. Brenda's voice saying she will bury me in notices until I run out of printer ink. The room goes silent. Ron looks at Brenda and asks her if she actually said those things. She does not answer. He asks her if she has been authorizing tows without his signature. She says it is more efficient that way. Ron says efficiency does not override policy. He tells her that as of this moment, her enforcement authority is suspended pending an internal audit. Brenda's face goes pale. She says he cannot do that. Ron says he just did. He says the board will vote on it in closed session after the meeting, but effective immediately she is not to issue any fines, authorize any tows, or conduct any inspections without written board approval. Brenda gathers her things and walks out. The door slams behind her. Ron looks at me and apologizes. He says the board was not aware she was operating outside the rules, and they will conduct a full review of her enforcement actions over the past 2 years. He asks me to forward all my documentation to the property manager. I say I will. Greg stands up and says he wants to submit a formal complaint as well, along with testimony from other homeowners who were targeted by Brenda. Ron says he welcomes it. 2 days later, I get a call from Paul, the lawyer. He says the small claims case has been withdrawn. He says Brenda's attorney dropped the filing after the board informed him that she did not have authorization to bring the case on behalf of the HOA. Paul also says the management company has refunded my inspection fee and voided the original fine. I feel a surge of relief, but Paul tells me not to celebrate yet. He says Brenda is not the type to walk away quietly, and I should expect her to try something else before the audit is finished. He is right. 3 days after the meeting, I come home from work and find a bright orange windshield sticker on my car. It says violation in big letters. No details, no signature, no date. I peel it off and see that it is not even an official HOA sticker. It is a generic parking violation form you can buy at an office supply store. I take a photo of it and send it to Ron. He replies within an hour and says Brenda is no longer acting in any official capacity, and if she continues to harass me, I should file a police report. I call the non-emergency line and file a report. The officer who takes my statement says this could be considered stalking or harassment if it continues, and he will add it to the record. The audit takes 2 weeks. During that time, Brenda does not show up at any board meetings, and I do not see her around the neighborhood. Greg tells me she has been lying low because the management company is going through her enforcement records and finding a lot of irregular actions. Then, one afternoon, I get an email from Ron. The subject line says audit results and board action. I open it and read. The audit found that Brenda issued over 300 fines in the past 2 years, but only 60 of them had proper board authorization. The rest were issued on her own authority, in violation of HOA policy. The audit also found that she had a financial relationship with the tow company. She was receiving a referral fee for every tow she authorized, which is a direct conflict of interest and a breach of fiduciary duty. The board voted unanimously to terminate her position as Special Assessment Coordinator, effective immediately. The board also voted to adopt an enforcement checklist that limits enforcement tactics to only those explicitly authorized in the governing documents, with mandatory board review for any tow or lien action. Ron's email includes a copy of a statute citation that will be read into the minutes at the next meeting, establishing that all prior unauthorized fines are void and refunds will be processed. That is the payback vector. I forward the email to Paul. He says this is a clean win, and I should document it for my refinance file in case the title company asks about HOA disputes. The next board meeting is packed. Brenda does not attend. Ron reads the audit summary into the record. He reads the statute citation. He announces that the board has terminated its contract with the previous tow company due to ethical violations and conflict of interest, and they are soliciting bids from new vendors with stricter oversight requirements. That is the HOA consequence. He also announces that Brenda Evans is no longer affiliated with the Silverleaf Association in any capacity, and any enforcement actions she took without authorization are null and void. That is the Karen consequence. The room erupts in applause. Greg stands up and thanks the board for taking action. Several other homeowners stand up and share their own stories of being targeted by Brenda with bogus fines and tow threats. Ron listens and takes notes. He promises that the new enforcement process will be transparent and accountable. After the meeting, Ron pulls me aside and tells me the tow company tried to bill the HOA for the dispatch attempt on my car. When the board asked for documentation, the tow company sent over a photo of Brenda holding the tire clamp next to my car, clearly staged, with a timestamp that proved she took it before the driver even arrived. Ron says that was the final straw. The board terminated the contract, and the tow vendor blacklisted the HOA from future service, forcing the board to scramble for a new contract. That is the outcome. Ron says the board is considering legal action against Brenda for the referral fee arrangement, but they are waiting to see if she tries to sue first. I tell him I hope it does not come to that, but if it does, I have plenty of evidence. That funny karma moment happens 2 weeks later. I am at the grocery store, and I see Brenda in the parking lot. She is arguing with a parking enforcement officer who is writing her a ticket for parking in a fire lane. She is yelling that she did not see the sign, that she was only there for 2 minutes, that she has a meeting to get to. The officer is unmoved. He hands her the ticket and walks away. Brenda sees me watching. She glares, gets in her car and drives off. I do not say anything. I just smile and keep walking. The irony is perfect. She spent 2 years terrorizing people over parking rules, and now she is on the other side of the clipboard. The refinance goes through without a hitch. The title company pulls the HOA records and sees that all fines against my property have been voided and there are no active liens. My loan officer says it is one of the cleanest HOA files she has seen in years. I thank Greg for his help, and I buy him lunch. He tells me he is thinking about running for the board again in the next election cycle because he wants to make sure the new enforcement rules actually stick. I tell him he has my vote. I still see the bright orange stickers sometimes when I drive through the neighborhood, leftovers from Brenda's enforcement era that people have not peeled off yet. They are like little monuments to a petty tyrant who thought she was untouchable. But every time I see one, I remember that recording. I remember the way the tow driver hesitated when Brenda insisted the tow was authorized. I remember the way her voice sounded when she said she would bury me in notices. I remember the way the room went silent when I played it for the board. And I remember that sometimes the best revenge is not raising your voice. Sometimes it is just having proof. The neighborhood is quieter now. The new parking rules are posted on the HOA website, and the enforcement checklist is a public document that anyone can review. The new tow company has a transparent fee schedule and a formal dispute process. People are not afraid to park in their own driveways anymore. And Brenda? I heard she moved to a different development about an hour north. I hope for their sake they have better oversight. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one.